Hello, welcome to the Kidlit Distancing Social. I'm Laura Backus, publisher of Children's Book Insider, and we're happy you're here with us today. If you are brand new or watching us for the first time on the recording, and you want to get on our list to learn about everything we do, as well as find out about who our social guests are coming up, go to writeforkids.org/ultimate-cheat sheet, and you will get a free ebook where we have compiled 31 years of children's writing knowledge for beginners, how to get started writing for kids in one free ebook. And you'll get on our list and find out about all the other stuff that we do. And if you want to subscribe to our newsletter, Children's Book Insider, we have a special deal for our socialites, writeforkids.org/CBI, $5 a month. You'll get the newsletter delivered to your inbox every month. It's about 20 pages. And you'll get access to our CBI Clubhouse online membership site that has 31 years worth of information in it. And our newsletter features marketing information every month, including an exclusive Above the Slush Pile code for either an editor or an agent, where you get to use that code when you submit and jump over the slush pile. So that's awesome. So now we get some celebrates. We have a lot of good celebrates today, which is very exciting to me because I just love to see you all doing so well. Christine Van Zant's nonfiction picture book, A Brief History of Underpants, comes out today from Becker and Meyer Kids, which is a Quarto Kids imprint. One part humor, one part history, this book explores the evolution of fashion's most unmentionable garment and has a reveal wheel on the front cover to see underwear evolve through the ages. And that is awesome. What a great idea. So, Christine, congratulations on your book birthday today. And June 1st marks the 25th anniversary of Natasha Wing's picture book, Jalapeno Bagels. Natasha, the illustrator Robert Castilla, and the bakery that inspired the book, Los Bagels, are celebrating with a giveaway. So you can send an email to Hal Bagels Contest, JAL Bagels Contest @gmail.com between now and noon on June 15th, and you may win one of 3 prizes. You could win a signed art book, a baked goods package, or a signed book, Jalapeno Bagels. So congratulations, Natasha. Your book birthday as well, only your book is 25 today. Donna O'Donnell Figursky was part of a great panel with the Montclair Write Group Virtual Author Festival on May 16th. So she was part of that panel, and the topic was diversity and inclusion in children's picture books. And Donna's book, Prisoners Without Bars, is about being a caregiver for someone with a, I think, brain injury or some, I haven't read the book, but the impression I got was someone who has some sort of long-term issue. And so, Donna, congratulations on being on that panel. I'm sure you added quite a bit of great stuff to that discussion. Anita McCormick writes, I am celebrating because my nonfiction book for teens, Everything You Need to Know About Non-Binary Gender Identities from Rosen Publishing, was selected to be included on the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators reading list. Celebrate Pride. The reading list will be released in June of 2021, this month. So congrats, Anita. That is awesome. Everybody, thank you for sending your celebrates so we can celebrate with you. And I want to hear your good news. So mail at writeforkids.org and put celebrate in the subject line and tell me what you want to celebrate. And we will feature you on a future Kidlit Distancing Social. No news is too small. to celebrate. Yay. And I have something to celebrate here. About 6 weeks ago or so, maybe 2 months ago, I had my friend Danny Alcorn from Writing Academy was my guest on the social, and our topic was overcoming obstacles to success as a children's writer. We had a great discussion, and we hinted that we had something coming up. So this Thursday, June 3rd, we will be starting to announce what that is. It's our newest collaboration, and it's called Writer's Secret Sauce. And if you want to hear about it and be on the list for our launch party and get the first lesson for free, you need to go to that writeforkids.org/ultimate-cheat sheet. Make sure you're on our list. And if you are, you will be getting an email June 3rd from us with a free video. That's really, really cool. And just in a nutshell, Writer's Secret Sauce is everything writers need to be successful beyond craft. That's sort of the focus of that. But you will find out more on the video you will get June 3rd in the email. So be sure to get on that list if you are interested in finding out about that. Okay. Links of interest. This is a cool one. How to get your first freelance byline and why even fiction writers should freelance by Catherine Bob Mugira. Sorry. On Jane Friedman's blog, discusses how freelance writing, even for little or no pay, offers a low-stakes way to gain publication credit, hone your skills, and raise your visibility. We're talking marketing today, okay? This all goes toward your author platform. All of the bylines, all of the freelance writing you do, even if you're like, no, I'm writing a novel, that's okay. This all counts. So this is a really interesting article about that and different ways where you can start getting some of those bylines that are fairly easy for you to do and that don't take up a ton of your time so that you can still keep working on your bigger work. So there's a direct link to this, bit.ly/freelance byline. Okay, now I would like to introduce my guest tonight. Lauren Ranalli is an award-winning children's book author, marketing and communications professional, and coach for aspiring and self-published authors. She lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan with her husband, kids, and a high-energy puppy. We love puppies on the Distancing Social. So you can learn more about her work and sign up for a free social media training for authors at her website, laurenranalli.com. Or laurenranalli.com. I knew I was going to do that at least once tonight. So there, I got it out of the way. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with all of you. You got a great crowd here. I recognize a fair number of these names, which is exciting.
It is exciting. It is exciting. And we get another good crowd watching the replay. So we're really happy about that.
Fantastic.
So tell us, we're going to do something fun tonight. We're going to take a quiz so that authors can learn their marketing style, and you can give some great advice on that. But before we do that, I want to just find out a little bit about you. So first, tell us about your books that you've written.
Sure. So I have 3 books out right now and a 4th coming out sometime in the next year. I wrote my first book, actually wrote the book many years ago, probably about 8 or 9 years ago at this point. But I really just wrote it as a story for my son when he was born, and I emailed it to myself, and I thought, oh, I'll just, I'll read it to him when he's older. And I didn't do anything with it for about 5 or 6 years at that point. I was a new mom. I had a full-time job, and I didn't know how to put a book out into the world. I didn't know that self-publishing was a thing you could do. And I, wasn't really, I wasn't into pursuing the idea of, getting an agent and a publisher. So I just thought it would be a story that I would read to my son. And then I decided, you know what, I think I actually want this to be a real thing that you can have and hold and read with my family and have others read with their families. And so I kind of, decided to dive in And I did a lot of research on the world of self-publishing, and I teamed up with a great local illustrator. And we put a book out about 10 months after we first met. And we've done 3 together now. My first book is called The Great Latke Cook-Off. And it's a Hanukkah story about a family celebrating or having a cooking contest while celebrating the 8 nights of Hanukkah. And then my second book is called Places We Have Never Been. And this is an imaginative story that helps get you thinking about travel and other places and other cultures through a series of questions where you pick a place in your mind to travel to as you read the books. You can pick a new place every time. And then my latest book it's called Let's Meet on the Moon. And I actually wrote this pre-COVID, but it came out at the beginning of the pandemic. And it's about staying connected to people when you can't be together. So it really took on this whole new meaning at the beginning of the pandemic. And it's a story about, long distance friendship and letter writing and pen pals and how you can kind of maintain that friendship space. And it comes with postcards that you can write back to your friends. But at the beginning of the pandemic, kids were using the postcards to put in their neighbors' mailboxes because that was somebody they couldn't see as well. So it really it kind of took on this whole new life when it came out, something I hadn't intended, but that was really special.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So as a self-published author, you had to learn very quickly how to market your work.
Yes.
And now you coach aspiring and self-published authors how to do it for themselves. So how did you make that leap from, doing it for yourself to deciding to coach others?
Yeah, well, it was sort of a leap that I wasn't anticipating, but like I said, I'm sort of a research nerd. And so I put in a lot of time and energy to figuring this out, and I wanted it to do well. And truthfully, I just hoped, when I launched my first book, I said, I hope somebody other than like my aunt and my college best friend, buys this. Right. But I had done the legwork, and I had put myself in a position where within the first 3 months of launching that book, I had done $10,000 in sales and booked 30 promotional events. And I thought, well, okay, that's more than I was anticipating. Yeah. And people started to take notice of that. And so I started getting, a couple of emails a month or some direct messages on social media saying, hey, it seems like your book is doing well, and I like what you're doing on social media. How did you do that? And so I just started, messaging with people, and then that led to more people contacting me. And soon I was getting messages almost every day from folks around the country, really around the world. I've worked with authors in over 35 countries now, just saying, I don't know what to do with this. I either have a book idea that I want to put out there and I'm not sure what to do next, or I put my book out there and it kind of didn't do very well, or it did great during the launch and then nothing since. And can you help me think through some strategies? So over time, I started developing some online trainings and courses. I had a membership community for a while that I loved so much, but it became a little bit hard to manage during just all of the things. But now I do coaching sessions. And like I said, I have a bunch of online trainings, including a free social media training that you're all welcome to, access. Actually, I'll put a link in here just in case anyone has to hop off early, but there you go. free training for you.
Awesome. In the chat box. Great.
But yeah, so just basically it came from people asking me questions. And what really happened was that I realized how many people were asking the same questions, right? Which meant that everybody is sort of going through this same path and struggle. And I just thought, wow, we all have such limited time and resources. Wouldn't it be better for them to spend their time and their resources on talking about what's unique about their book rather than doing the digging around getting your ISBN and figuring out the book formatting and all the stuff that we have to do as authors, but it's not really where you want to spend your time and energy. And so I thought, if I can do some of that for you, then I can give people that time back to kind of spend their creative energy in ways that might be more meaningful and fun.
Sure. So you're a marketing and communications professional. Did you do this kind of work before you were an author?
No, not really. So I'm a public health professional, and I do marketing and communications for an international health equity organization. But I wasn't really doing the marketing piece until about 2 or 3 years ago. I was
Hmm.
truthfully doing the more of the public health work, the grant writing, the proposal writing, the program implementation, the research piece. And it was honestly it was the process of marketing my books and my author business that got me really into this, and I was able to fortunately combine the two.
Wow.
And I was actually, when I interviewed for my most recent job with this organization, I used my author experience, in
Sure.
my resume and in my interview to say, I did this from scratch. I built my website. I built this following. I do e-courses. I do training. I have a weekly newsletter. And so it was truthfully this author path that helped me change course a bit in my full-time career.
Hmm. Well, and $10,000 worth of sales for a self-published book. You said that was in the first month,
3 months.
3 months. That's amazing. You know,
I was surprised.
that is
Pleasantly.
quite astounding. Yeah, it really is. And for those of you who haven't self-published, those numbers are really good. Those are getting close to traditionally published numbers. So that is very, very impressive. Um, we're going to get in. I'm going to share my screen again so we can have you all take the quiz. I just saw a question in the chat box. Mary Jo, you say, please put the contact you mentioned in the chat again. Mary Jo, I'm not sure which contact you're talking about. If you mean the, Lauren, I think she means the link to your social media freebie. You need to make it to all panelists and attendees. You sent it just to
Ah,
all panelists.
thank you.
That's why.
Here you all are.
Okay.
There it is.
There it is. Thank you, Mary Jo, for pointing that out. Okay, so I want you all to grab a piece of paper and a pencil, pen, something, or even just your phone so you can keep track. We're going to have a short quiz, and you're going to answer every question either A, B, or C, and you need to just keep track of what letter your answer corresponds with for each question so that we can tally it up at the end. Okay, so Lauren, do you want to read these questions out loud?
Yeah,
And
absolutely. So this is a quiz that I had put together on my website a while ago, just to kind of, as Laura was saying, it's meant to just be fun because marketing should be fun. I know at the beginning you were like, oh, everyone gets a little nervous, and people really do. They get stressed out about marketing. So I want to show you that this can be a little bit fun and lighthearted. So as she mentioned, go ahead and keep track of your score. And if you feel like it, you can also answer each one in the chat. I'm curious to see as well. So this is about your book marketing styles. So selecting the response that's closest to what resonates for you. So question number 1, what comes to mind when you think of marketing your book? A, creativity, energy, and lots of ideas. B, a few ideas, but could use some more. Or C, a mix of panic and dread. Okay, some A's and B's so far. C, Terry, don't worry, we got you. All right. All right, so it's everyone's, just make sure you're writing down your own, and if you'd like, hit A, but also C. I like that, Sheila. I think that's like very, very honest. Okay, so whole mix across the board here, which is, very typical from what I see. A's to C's across the board. Okay,
Great.
so if everyone's written down their response, we'll go to question 2.
Okay.
All right, number 2. What is your definition of book marketing success? Nothing short of a national Barnes and Noble display and making the Amazon bestseller list. B, connecting with indie bookstores, getting great customer reviews, and finding my own niche of readers. Or C, having someone other than my immediate family read my book, which is where I was when I put my first one out, where I put when I hit send on like, hey, my book's available. I was like, please, somebody other than mom and dad, please buy this. Okay, mostly a lot of B's in here. Family doesn't read our books. Okay, A, B, and C. B, yep. So again, kind of a mix. Remind me to come back at the end and talk about the Amazon bestseller list because I have a little bit of a story there. Okay, A's and B's and some C's as well. Okay, great. Thank you for your honest responses here. Let's go on to question 3. On an average day, how many people do you tell about your book? A, everyone I see. B, I work it into a few conversations. Or C, is that something I'm supposed to do? Lots of B's. Good. Seems like you all are fairly comfortable telling some folks about your book, A's and B's. Great. Good. I'm proud of you. All right, let's go on to question 4. How much time do you dedicate to marketing your book? A, daily, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. B, a few hours each week. Or C, keep meaning to schedule time to think about this. A, C, yep, B's and C's, lots of C's. All right, well, you're thinking about it now. That's good. C, coming out of COVID is rough. Yeah. B, B, B. A, when I have a book, I'll need to be A. Yep. Okay, so kind of across every question so far, people have been pretty across the board.
Cool.
D, book is still in progress. Nope, but that doesn't actually mean that you shouldn't be talking about it. So we'll come back to that a little bit, Maureen. All right, question 5. How do you primarily market your book? A, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, book conferences, my website, you name it. B, Amazon and social media. Or C, I've told a few friends that I wrote a book. B, C, A, B is the plan. A, C, A, B. Yep, kind of all over the place. B, maybe C from Terry. C, B, A. Great. Thanks, everyone. All right, question 6. Have you set up a marketing budget? A, I put 50% of my sales revenue back into marketing. B, I set aside funds to take some marketing trainings and maybe a few social media ads. Or C, I didn't think I needed a marketing budget. Lots of B's and C's. Not there yet. Yikes. Nope, it's okay. We're going through this right now. No yikes. Safe space. Okay.
All right. There are no wrong answers
here.
There
are no wrong answers. There are no wrong answers. Okay. Let's go on to the next slide. And this is the last question, question 7. How happy are you with your current book promotion success? A, I'm killing it. B, I've had some good traction, but I definitely want more. Or C, I'm not sure I would call it success. Lots of C's, B's. Yeah. So now taking a look at I see a lot of C's here, so we'll get into this. So now looking at your own sort of group of responses for your kind of overall picture, what are you? You mostly an A, mostly a B, mostly a C, or a combination? Let me know kind of your overall picture here. Okay, I'm seeing B's, C's, mostly B, 4 C, yep, B, 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 C, probably a B with a few, not, okay. Evenly split between B and C, combination, Susan's an A, combo of A's and B's for Sharon. Okay, great. So yeah, this is pretty typical of what I see. I have to say, when somebody would take the quiz on the website, the results would come to me. They'd also get like an automated response, but I'd see the results that came in. And I have to say that B/C is very, very common from the authors who were finding my site and taking the quiz. A lot of C's, a lot of B's, a couple of A's in there. But even if you are an A, or mostly an A, there's still more that we can be doing. So I'm going to give you some quick definitions of what I consider to be an A promoter, a B promoter, and a C promoter. And then we'll talk just a little bit about some strategies, some things you might want to think about if you're kind of solidly in that B range or solidly in the C range. And this is just going to be conversational. I have no more slides. Those are my slides. And so if you have questions that come up throughout, feel free. But let me tell you a little bit, and I have my screen over here. So you'll see my eyes dart this way, and I'm not trying to be rude and look away from you. But so for the mostly A's, that's what I consider to be like the go-getter promoter, where you feel really confident in your marketing strategy and you love talking to anyone and everyone about your books. And that you're really open to lots of different platforms to promote your work. So that's what I would consider an A promoter. And we'll talk about some strategies for those of you who are in the A range or kind of B to A range. If you scored mostly Bs, then I consider you to be a classic promoter. So, like many authors, you are doing what you can when you can. You are promoting, you know that promoting your books takes a lot of time and energy. So, first off, congratulations, you're doing great. Everyone here is doing great. But it seems like you're motivated to connect with even more readers. So, we'll talk a little bit about what you can do there. And then if you scored mostly C's, this is what I call the reluctant promoter, because maybe you've convinced yourself that marketing like just isn't your thing. And I hear you, but getting comfortable with book promotion is going to be one of the keys to your future success. Whether you self-publish or traditionally published, you really are the best promotional resource for your books. And traditional publishers do far less than they used to help authors with their promotion. And so getting comfortable promoting your books and talking about your books, even if it's not your thing, is somewhere that we all need to get. And you may not believe this because of hopefully the energy and the excitement I'm bringing here today. I am an introvert. I am not an extrovert. I mean, I enjoy people, but man, does it exhaust me. People exhaust me, especially in like the COVID world when I'm not used to being around people. And so even if you are an introvert, you don't feel like you are kind of this like outward personality, that's okay. And there's really ways to do this without feeling that. So that's kind of the definitions. A is the go-getter promoter, B is the classic promoter, and C is the reluctant promoter. Lisa's an introvert over there. I feel you, Lisa. You're my people. And so I thought what would be helpful right now is to go through some strategies. And the part of the reason why I didn't, plan out a bunch of slides is because I didn't know how you were going to score, right? If I came into this presentation and everyone was a solid A, then I'd be like, okay, let's tailor this a little bit here. If everybody said C's across the board, we'd start there. But we've got a mix. So I'm going to go through some different strategies for each type, and maybe you can see it as building blocks. So in fact, I think maybe I'll start with C's and we'll kind of work our way towards that A range, and you can maybe see how some of this builds on each other. All right, so let me scroll down a bit to the C's. So we're going to try a little bit about talking about your book. So one of the questions in there was, how often do you talk about your book? Do you tell everyone you know? Do you mention it a few times a week, or you've totally forgotten to even tell, your best friend from childhood that you're writing a book? And I do remember that somebody in there said, what, my book's not out yet. And one of the things that I really believe I did well to set myself up for those first 3 months of bringing in, $10,000 in revenue is that I had an audience waiting to hear about my book because I told them about it early and I told them about it often. And so part of the reason I did that was I felt like I had to sort of make this outward commitment. I just told you I'm an introvert, so it wasn't the easiest thing for me to announce, and I was very nervous about it. But if you go all the way back to the beginning of my Instagram, you will see there's a video of me and my son. He's probably 4 at the time. And we just announced to everybody that we wrote this book and that it's coming out. And we didn't say when it was coming out because I didn't know at the time. I don't even think I'd met our illustrator at that point. But I was just like, I wrote this book and I'm turning it into a real thing. And I'm excited to tell you about it. And I put that out on social media. And I also emailed it to like everyone I knew. Everyone I knew. I told everybody I knew that I was writing a book. And you might not be surprised to hear this, but I got so much lovely, positive feedback from people saying, that's amazing. I can't believe it. I've been thinking of writing a book. I didn't have a single person write back to me. For as nervous as I was to hit send on that email, I didn't have a single person write back to me and be like, gross, I can't believe you just told me that. Like, why did you write a book? Nobody's going to say that to you. They may not respond, and that's fine, but you're going to get all this lovely feedback. Mm-hmm. And when I first sold my book, when I first sent it out to people and I talked to them about it, some of the people who bought my book were our pediatrician, a college roommate I hadn't seen in a college friend I hadn't seen in 20 years. She bought 15 copies as gifts for friends. A colleague I hadn't worked with in 20 years, our electrician who just happened to be in the house that day. And he said, what are you working on? Or he said, he didn't even say, what are you working on? He said, how are things going? And I got into the habit of responding by saying, it's going well. I just published a book. And was like, oh, and it turns out he had a young daughter and he wanted a copy. And I whipped one out and signed it for him. And he handed me some cash and I sold the book to him. And so part of the reason I say that is how many times a week, like really, how many times a week does somebody say, hey, how are you? Like somebody in the chat, just how many times a week would you guess that somebody says, hey, how are you? Let's get some numbers in there. Tanya says, yeah, she was shocked people were so supportive. I know. Why are we shocked that people are so supportive of us, right? I think a lot of people feel that way. We're so nervous to say it out there. So, right, every day, Carrie says, every day somebody says, how are you? And how often are we currently responding? Dozens of times, right? How often are we currently responding? I'm great. I just wrote a new book. And maybe it's not appropriate in every situation, but think of times where it might be, right? You are, you're just you're like talking to the dental hygienist, you're talking to whoever, you're, just chatting with people, you're in the, at school drop off, at whatever it is. And there are so many opportunities that we could take to just respond authentically and say, I'm doing well. I've just published a book or I'm working on a book. And it just gets people excited and it gets you in the habit of talking about your work. So that's one thing I recommend definitely for all of you kind of see marketers and promoters out there. It's just start talking about writing your book. But more importantly is to start building that audience. Don't think of your marketing plan as starting 3 weeks before your book launch, because who are you marketing to? There's nobody to market to when you are just starting. And so that's part of the reason I have this free social media training in there that I put in the chat, because it talks about like, how do you set up your online accounts? How are you attracting people to your readers? How are you telling them what your work is about? What in the world should you be posting about 10 months before your book comes out, right? And so I highly recommend that you take that training, because it's going to help build an audience, because that's what you need. We all need an audience, right? There's fewer in-person events happening right now. Online events are fantastic and wonderful. But again, if you haven't started connecting with folks, like, who's your audience? And you need every single one of us, whether we are self-published or traditionally published, we need to find an audience. So that is my advice to the kind of slightly reluctant people, is start really getting comfortable talking about your work.
Great. Can I jump in here with a quick question?
Please.
First of all, any of you all, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A so I can keep track of them, and we'll get to those toward the end. But I have a question for you. I love this, telling people about your book, just talking about it. Do you carry business cards with like your website on it or something, so that if you're in the line at the grocery store and you say, I just finished a book, and the cashier says, that sounds like something I'd want, can you say, here's my website, or here's the title of my book, something that you can hand people?
Yeah, I do. So I do have business cards that I printed up. I think I got them on Moo or Canva. I can't remember. And then the other thing I have, and I don't necessarily keep these in my pocket, but if you can see, these are postcards. And then on the back here, this is actually something I send out with all of my books, but it's a little bit of a thank you, but it has my social media information. It has my website, and this is sort of more of the purpose of like leaving your review or how you can find me. But I do think it's important to have something on you, or to at very least be able to pull up your phone and say, this is my Instagram handle, or this is my website, and to be able to show people. Because people are going to be, curious, and they may be genuinely curious, but if you don't have anything to show them or to give them, they're going to forget. We all forget. How many times do we need to see something over and over and over again before we take action?
Exactly. And it's really cheap to get business cards printed up. And on the back, you can have the title of your book. You can have all your social media stuff. And then as you get more books coming out, just print new cards with more titles on them. It's
exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I'm looking here. It's talking to strangers in the grocery line. I'm totally a grocery talker. I mean, I not maybe like recently, but actually because I haven't been in grocery stores, I do the pickup. But when I would go to stores, I would talk to people, and just waiting in lines. Yep. When you're talking in the library, absolutely. Librarians are great people to talk to you about your books. If you have school age kids, teachers, principals, counselors, whoever, these are all great connections to make.
That's great. And it's interesting. People are interested in hearing about this because most people, when they say, "How are you?" they expect you to go, "I'm fine,"
Exactly.
or,
Fine.
"Ugh, I've had a terrible day." I mean, one of the two. But to come out with, "Oh, I just finished a book," that's not expected.
You're bringing something to the table. Like it is. It's really
Absolutely.
true. It's really
Absolutely.
true.
Mhm.
Yeah. And oh shoot, you just reminded me of something. What was I gonna say? When people oh, the other thing that I noticed is how many people said to me, I've been thinking about writing a book. I mean, that was really surprising to me, I have to say, is that so many people have thought about this. And,
Yes.
that, oh, I have this story idea, or I wrote something down a while ago, or I've always wanted to write about my grandmother, or whatever it is. And yeah, it's amazing to me. Like, and to, it can be very inspiring to other people to know that like you actually are doing it. You're making it happen.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Okay, great.
Right.
Great advice.
All right, so let's move on to B, the classic promoter. So, like we said, this takes time and energy. You're doing what you can when you can. Maybe you've dabbled in social media, you've got some stuff set up. Maybe you have your website going. And maybe you've, tried to contact a couple, local bookstores or places like that. So, one of the things I really say is that make sure you are maximizing what social media can do for you. And I'm a big fan and a proponent of social media. It definitely has its drawbacks, and it's always changing. And I always say to people, don't focus on the algorithm. The algorithm's going to change. Folks like you and I are never going to know when it changes, why it changes. Just focus on putting out good content. And that's kind of what one of my trainings like really talks about is authentic, engaging content. But the other thing too is if you have your own website, having an email list. I mean, Laura, I'm sure you can attest to this. Having an email list is probably the best resource you can have for yourself, because social media, it will come and go.
Mhm.
Facebook could shut down my author platform tomorrow because they think I do something atrocious,
Right.
or, Instagram could just fall into the ether. But people on my email list, I maintain that connection. I really do I hate to say own that connection, but you
Right.
control how often you communicate and who sees it. Because even on social media, which I do think is really important, you could put a post out there and the algorithm's doing something wonky that day, and your best post doesn't really get seen. But
Right.
your emails, you have more control. So would you say that your email list is one of your best marketing tools?
Absolutely. And it's people who have demonstrated an interest in what you're doing. They volunteer to be
Exactly.
on that list. So these are really your customers. These are people who want to hear from you. And that's
Yes.
very, very valuable. Absolutely.
Totally agree.
Mhm.
So, one of the things that I do think is really important in social media is having your own author brand and thinking about yourself as a brand, thinking about yourself as a professional author and writer.
Mhm.
That I think was also something that I did well from the beginning, is that I took myself seriously as a professional author, even though I had no book out yet. I just kind of committed to this persona. And I really worked hard on creating a brand that is recognizable and that is consistent. And I have a separate training on my website all about branding and author branding if it's something you're interested in. But I really do believe that it helps you stand out in the world. So Terry says, what is a brand? So Terry, to me, a brand is sort of like your personality, like your own personality, but in a way that is, like I said, it's consistent and it's recognizable. And so I really do think that, and there's all sorts of research and psychology around like establishing your own colors and the fonts that you use consistently and the way that you use your voice and the way you talk and speak in your emails, in your social media. So not only is it authentic, but that it really does feel like a consistent person, like a consistent voice. And one of the things that I'm sort of kind of known for in my brand is that I'm a huge pencil geek. I'm a big pencil nerd. And after a while, people started sending me pencil posts. They started tagging me in pencil posts. And I loved that because I was like, one, I find this fascinating. I love all things pencil. But two, it's working. Like people are understanding that they're seeing this and connecting it with me and with my work. Or one of the best compliments I'll get from somebody is when they say, I saw this post and I knew it was yours before I even read it. And I love that. And the reason I love it is that it's crowded out there. It is like a
Yeah.
very crowded field for authors. And so creating like a consistent brand and persona for yourself is truly important. And, I will say, I think some people get nervous that being on social media means you have to be this like bubbly influencer, right? Like you have to sort of be this certain type of personality. And it's so not true. One of the authors that I was doing a coaching session with was saying to me, I'm not a cheerful person. Like I'm not the person who puts 10 exclamation points at the end of a sentence. And so when somebody comments on something, I'm not going to be the one who's like, thanks, heart emoji, heart emoji. And I said, well, no, like you're not cheerful, but you're very soulful. And so if you respond to that post without saying thanks, 10 exclamation points, but you say, thank you so much, that really means a lot to me. That's a very it's the same, like kind of, it's a thank you, but it's much more consistent with who you are. And so I think that people get very hung up on on sort of what it takes to be on social media, and that you have to be extroverted and you have to be cheerful and you have to be all of these things and trendy. And it's really just not true. You just have to like have something that resonates with you, and therefore finding the right people. And so, yeah, Terry, I'm glad that makes sense to you. And I take you through in that training, I do take you through like a couple of tips and ideas. But I think that those are really important. And you can see, I have a blog post on my site. It's from a long time ago, but it's one that I like going back to. It's kind of my before and after on Instagram. When I first started my Instagram platform, and it was about my Hanukkah book, all I talked about was Hanukkah. And it was just pictures of my kids opening their presents each night of Hanukkah. And then I quickly realized, I was like, well, man, this looks like my personal account. This looks nothing like an author account. And also, like, what if people don't care about Hanukkah or latkes or like cooking? Like, what if this isn't their thing? Are they going to think there's no other reason to follow me? And what if I write another book? Does this even make sense? So if you go back and see, those first pictures are like they're just brown. Like I just call it like my brown face. Like everything was like about like potatoes and cooking, and it was just very brown. But you can see sort of the transformation, and I talk in there and actually in the training about like some of the tools I use for, what am I trying to say? The tools I use for like, crafting photos, and like, how do I put posts together, and what do I use to lighten and brighten certain things, and how did I pick fonts and all of that stuff. So there's some goodies in there for you. But I think that for you, for all of you sort of classic promoters, I will say like getting into the different platforms you use, using your analytics is something. And I think that's even more for like you kind of go-getter promoters, but just making sure that the things you have set up are really working to your advantage and maximizing what those platforms can do for you.
Right. Do you think it's a good idea to focus on the one or two platforms that you are most comfortable with, most likely to post in? Or do you need to do all of them?
I 100% think you should pick one or two that you feel comfortable in, because even in those, you're going to go through phases of kind of feeling, I don't know, a little burnt out. Like, I'm just not into it this week. And that's fine. It's totally fine. But if you're on 10 platforms, it's so much easier to feel that way. So my personal favorite for me is Instagram. I think it's a great visual platform for authors. I use Facebook because Facebook and Instagram are connected. But I don't really truthfully, I don't see a lot of traction in my Facebook stuff. Most of my engagement is on Instagram. And most of my Instagram is at least trying, or not most, but a good proportion of it is trying to get people over to my newsletter, to my website, because that's where I really want to connect with people. I want them to see my blogs. I want them to see these things. So yes, those are the ones that I use. I have a professional Twitter account. I don't use it that much. I don't know that my readers are hanging out on Twitter looking for their next children's book. Like in my public health profession, Twitter and LinkedIn are like my jam. Like that is those are my go-to places to post research, to post statistics, all those things. That's where people want it. I don't personally think that LinkedIn is where I'm going to find people who are interested in, buying my children's book, maybe, but it's not where I'm putting my energy. I'm definitely putting my energy into places like Instagram and also Facebook. Right. And I get people all the time like, are you on TikTok? Are you on Snapchat? Are you on Clubhouse? I'm like, I'm not, I'm not. And I think it's not that I don't think those things could work well. They're just not where my energy is.
Mhm. And do you think it's important that you have an end game? Like you said, your goal is to really get people to your website, to sign up for your newsletter. You want to grow that mailing list ultimately.
Yeah. I
And
mean, I
so,
think if nothing else,
mhm.
yeah, I think like an end game or, oh, here comes my puppy, an end game or that's Archie. And that's my husband. So, so I think you need to have an intention for sure. And honey, I'm on video. That's I think you need to have an intention, whether it's to like for me, and I have to say it's been more recently that I've been very intentional about trying to drive people from like Instagram over to my website. But I think that yes, having a purpose, whether it's to, and this is something kind of I go over in the trainings, is like not like people want to know about you as an author. They want to know about your process. They don't just want to see your book, your book, your book. They don't just want to see cover photo, sale, sale, sale. They want to know how you wrote it. They want to know what it's like to be an author. They want to know the process. They want to know what else interests you. And so I think that is certainly very important. So thinking through like, what is it you want to communicate? And what is your ultimate intention for being on those platforms?
Mhm. Okay, terrific.
Thanks. Tanya's saying several weeks ago that Colleen was saying, if you're only doing one, do Instagram. It's my favorite, I have to say. I think it's the best platform that I've found. It's been the most engaging. And for me, it's actually been the most fun. There's just, I like being able to do the Instagram stories. And I haven't really started doing reels yet, but I've seen people do them really well. I just haven't gotten there. But I think it's the most fun. Okay, so then for all of you, either A's or aspiring A's, who are these go-getter promoters who just feel super confident in the platforms and the things that you're using, but you still maybe aren't seeing the exact success that you're looking for. So I would say the two things here I would really focus on are your analytics for both your website and your social media to really drill down and see what's working and what's not working. And there's so many different ways you can do that. These platforms have really great analytic features on where people are coming to you from. Like, are they finding your post because they already follow you, or are they finding your post because you used hashtags that they follow, and therefore they followed, a hashtag like for my Let's Meet on the Moon book, I sometimes use the hashtag like pen pals or something. And people find me because they're looking for pen pal related things on Instagram. They had, it wasn't that they were looking even specifically for a children's book, but that's how they came across me and my work. And so using your analytics, again, I'm a data girl. And so I think that really drilling down into the analytics of your website and of your different platforms just gives you useful information so that you can fine tune how you're spending that precious time and precious energy. And then the other thing I would say is really thinking about reaching out and doing things like I'm doing right now, where you're putting yourself into a position of telling your story on other people's platforms. You're getting yourself in front of other people's audiences. And so many people I talk to say, well, you do your interviews because you're also a marketing expert or a marketing coach. But I was doing interviews when I was publishing my book or just putting things out there. You can kind of tap into different other people's interests, right? That maybe relate to your book or to your story. So for example, I worked with an author who wrote a really lovely book about recycling. And so she was able to get on a couple of podcast interviews related to environmentalism. And when they wanted somebody to come on and talk about how do you talk to your kids about recycling? And so she was able to come on and talk about her experience and why she wrote this book. And so getting yourself in a position and just starting to test the waters and reach out to people around like guest blogging, webcasts like this or podcast interviews. If you are already sort of at a place with your marketing that you feel really good and really comfortable with your work, taking that next step to get yourself in front of other people's audiences and other people's platforms is really great experience. And I have a blog post on my site about kind of like 5 tips for nailing like a podcast interview, or what you want to do, how you want to prepare, how you want to research, how you want to make sure it's a good fit. I think there's a tendency early on to say yes to any opportunity. Anybody who wants you to talk about something, say yes and come on. And I made that mistake early on where I got on a podcast and I was like, man, this person, we are just not on the same page. Like we're just not aligned really with like values. And it was not a good experience for me, or probably for them, I would imagine too. And you want those to be good experiences for everyone involved. But I'd say start testing the waters a little bit and start thinking about telling your author's story, not just the book. What was the inspiration? What was the process? What have you learned? What's coming next? And give people some ideas of why you might be a great guest for their audience and what you could bring to the table. Mm-hmm. And have a little freebie for them, like I have here, give them some free activity pages or coloring pages or a 20% off coupon or whatever it is. Like bring a little gift for the audience.
Sure. Well, and there was a question in the Q&A about tips for building an email list. Obviously, having an author newsletter is a great way to do it, but basically, you don't want to just ask people to give you their email. You want to give them something in return. Yes. So it can be a little freebie. It can be, whatever. It can be a couple activity pages that go with your book, that parents can print out and kids can use in conjunction with your book. It can be lots of different things, but you want to give them something in exchange for their email.
Exactly. Because how many emails do we get every day? I know I get too many, right? And so I'm sure you all get too many. So like asking someone to give you their email address to get more email communications is sort of a big deal, right? Like you want to give them something in exchange, and then you want to provide valuable content for them. You want it to make it worthwhile, and you want to make it really easy for them to unsubscribe. Like if it's not a good fit, make it super simple for them to unsubscribe, and then don't take it personally when they do. I unsubscribed from like 4 emails today, and it has nothing to do with the fact that like I may not still go back to that person's website if I, need their thing. Like I don't subscribe to Target's email, but I know that I'm going to Target to buy whatever 10 things I buy from Target all the time. It doesn't matter if somebody unsubscribes from your email list.
Right.
Don't take it personally.
Do not. Yep. Exactly. Well, let's get to some questions here. Thank you for those incredibly helpful and substantial tips for author type. That's great. So Sapphire asks, should we wait till we have a book contract to start marketing and talking about my book? And I know you've addressed that a little bit, but here's her concern. She said, I'm afraid if I get months of rejection, people might feel I'm full of hot air if I keep talking about my book for months and it keeps getting rejection letters.
So there's, that's an interesting point, not just about the rejection, but also about if your plan and your ultimate goal is to sign with a traditional publisher, then some of your work is going to be embargoed, right? Like they're going to tell you a little bit that like you can or cannot say this. So what I would really talk about is your author journey. I would talk about the fact that like, you've gotten 27 rejection letters or whatever it is, because that's so typical and so common and so relatable. And so I would make it less about your specific book, because you don't want to get into a position where you've shared too much. You've kind of put too much information out there. But you could definitely talk about your journey. You could talk about why you wrote a book and sort of the overall theme. But I think, I don't think people are I don't think people are going to think you're full of hot air. I think they're going to be rooting for you. I think they're going to be cheering you on. And then like when you do get that letter, you've got this excited, pumped audience that has been following you this whole time.
Well, and people are going to be amazed at your resilience if you say, yes, I've gotten 30 rejections, but I'm still sending it out.
Yeah.
They'll be impressed with that.
Yeah.
Your persistence is still there.
Absolutely. I can't remember how many rejection letters J.K. Rowling got for Harry Potter, but it was like high double digits.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So Anne says, how do you identify your audience? Do you see it as everyone, or do you have a target audience that you identified for your particular books?
I think it is targeted. I don't think it's everyone, because I don't expect, I don't expect like a sort of, middle age. I don't like that term, but like, that's who I am, but like middle age, working professional to want to read my children's books. So I am really thinking about who are parents and caregivers and educators for me personally, for kids in that like 3 to 7 age range. Or who are the people that want to support children's literacy that don't have a need for your book themselves? So I do a lot of like charity book drives and things where I know that these books are getting donated to a children's hospital, to a literacy foundation, to a wherever, because there are people, even just in my life, people I know who want to support me, but don't have a need for my book. They don't have young children or grandchildren. They're not connected to like that age range at all, but they want to support me and they want to support causes that I care about. And so I do think you want to be targeted and spend your energy and your efforts finding the right people. I mean, with both with your social media and with your email list as well. If you've got 6,000 people on your email list, but only, 190 of them are actually the right people, then you don't have a great email list.
Right.
You need to kind of really think about like who the right people are for you. And the same thing with followers. Oh, and that's what I was going to say about the Amazon bestseller list.
Okay.
So somebody kind of called me out on social media the other day and said, your books are like not even ranked on Amazon. Why would I trust you as an author? And I said, oh, I don't really sell on Amazon. Like I sell 95% of my books on my own website. Like it does, the Amazon bestseller list like wasn't on my list of things to do. Like I know there's a lot you can do to promote yourself on Amazon. I think it's a great tool and resource, but I prefer to sell on my own website. So I was like, yeah, no, if you search my books on Amazon, like they're kind of on like page 2 or 3, you have to dig a little for them. And so my point being like, pick the things that are important to you and put your energy there.
Right. And the Amazon bestseller algorithm is weird. I've read some articles about that recently where the way Amazon ranks things, it's not always by the number of books sold. The price factored in there, the reviews, the this, the that. There's all sorts of factors and they change it all the time. So
they change it all the time. You can stay on that list for a day. You could stay on it forever. You can be I could have probably been an Amazon bestseller for that first book for children's Hanukkah cooking books that came out in the month of October 2018. You can get really specific and give yourself the Amazon bestseller title. And sometimes that's helpful. I'm not saying it's not, but it just wasn't on my list of things. Sure. But to this person on social media, they really thought it should have been. And they didn't think they could trust me or my expertise because I wasn't an Amazon bestseller.
Yeah. Well, I think just last thing about Amazon here, the more important thing is that your keywords are good. So if people are typing in picture book latkes cooking, that your book comes up.
Yeah. And people can still leave you a review on Amazon, even if they didn't buy your book there. As long as they are an Amazon customer, it still counts as an Amazon review. So actually those postcards I show you, I ask people to leave me Amazon reviews because it's the easiest place for someone to do that.
Sure.
And then I can pull that review and I can put it on social media and I can repost on my site and all that stuff. So I do think it's useful and my books are there. If people want to find them, they can. I just don't prefer to do that. So Sheila's saying you want to know how I sell on my website. So Sheila, okay, I have another training that it's on my site. It's called the Self-Publishing Roadmap. And in this training, I walk through all of the key steps that I think you need to go through to be a successful self-published author. And I do talk about how do you set this up on your site to sell and like what the platform you can use and how you can do it and how you can make an online shop and online discounts and all those things. And there's a number of reasons why I think that if you have the ability and capacity to sell for your site, which does mean it, somebody asked earlier on about, do I have like the inventory or am I doing print on demand? I keep the inventory. I do. And so someone's saying, isn't it expensive to sell on your website? It's not. And I can try to touch on that. But so anyways, I have my books stored in my home. So I do pay for them. One thing you can do is do pre-sales, and that helps you earn the money in advance before you have to purchase from your printer. I like it because I can sign each copy of my book to a special reader. I can insert these postcards. It does mean that I go to the post office during the busy season. I'm going a couple times a week. I try not to go more than twice a week. But I'm going to the post office, but it also means that I get the email addresses of every single person who buys a book from me. And I can then communicate with them again when I'm having a sale, when I have a new book coming out, when I have something interesting I want them to know about. And on Amazon, you don't get anybody's contact information. You can contact them if there's an issue with their order, but you don't have their email. You don't have a way to talk to those people again. Mm-hmm. Isn't self-publishing picture books expensive? Illustrators do. Oh gosh, I do not illustrate my own books. And that is something I will tell people. Don't try to cut corners and save money and illustrate your own book if you are not an illustrator. Everyone can tell. Do the Barnes & Noble test. Put your book next to a book at Barnes & Noble. Does it look homemade or does it look like it belongs there? To me, self-publishing, I won't get into all the back-end expenses because it's going to be different for everybody. Here's what I will say. After the sort of initial cost of like an editor and illustrator, I figured out how many books would I have to sell to make all of that back. And I want to say it was something like 80 books. I had to sell 80 books and then I made back all of my front end expenses that I put in. And right now I sell my books for $15.99. And if I order 250 of them, it costs me $3.83 a book. So I make about $11 a book on every single sale. If I order 500, it costs me about $2.80 a book. So I make a little bit more. So, and when I sell that, nobody's taking a cut of it. So on Amazon, they're going to take 50% of your sale if they do the distribution. If I do my own distribution on Amazon, they still take 20% of my sale. And a bookstore takes typically about 40%. But when I sell it on my website, all of that $11 goes to me. And it pays for things that you need over time. It pays for hosting your website, which for me is about $300 a year to host a website. So I know what my monthly expenses are and what I need to hit to not lose money and to make money. I mean, honestly, my first goal with my first book was please don't lose money. And I didn't. And then I was like, oh, I can actually make money on this. That wasn't what I was expecting. I wanted a book out in the world and I didn't want to lose money on it.
Right.
And then I realized you could do more.
Awesome. And this is, the whole topic of the expenses for a self-publisher and breaking this down. That's a completely, separate 2-hour webinar, really.
Yeah.
So, but thanks for that information. Let me just ask you one more question. We've already kept you over the hour here. A couple people have asked about, I'll combine two questions into one here. First of all, marketing seasonal books, like how far in advance do you do that? And second, do you have any advice if you've got a book that's been out a few years? Can you still do all these same things to market it, or do you need a different approach?
I really think you can do all these same things to market it. I really do. I think you can breathe new life into it. I think that you can find new opportunities, new connections to make. If you think about the theme of your book and where would make an interesting presentation, think about, like I said, book drives or charity donations or things like that. It's never like the nicest thing about social media is it is like the world's largest networking event. There are millions of people who have never heard about your book. So no, it is not too late to do something new with it. Absolutely not. And as far as seasonal books, so my first book was a Hanukkah book and I put it out in October of that year. And I started telling people in like early September that it was coming. I think that's when I did pre-sales. So for any type of seasonal book, I would give yourself, a good 3-month runway to let people know it's coming. And then, oh my gosh, my children are screaming in the background. I am so sorry.
It's
okay. This might be my cutoff, but anyways, so yes, give yourself like a 3-month runway for a seasonal book, and then think about things you could do even after the fact, even after the season's over. Like think about, oh my gosh, hi everybody, everyone can hear you.
A very sympathetic.
This grandma is laughing out loud. Thanks, Mary. Oh my goodness. So anyways, thank you all for having me. This was so much fun. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much. This has been incredibly informative and the easiest interview I've ever done. I haven't had to talk hardly at all. It's been great. So everyone will send out the replay tomorrow, and we will have the links under the video for Lauren's website and her free social media training, so you can check that out. Thank you so much, Lauren. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.